Welcome to this new video in which I'll show you how to automate Google Search Console reporting with Automa without an API in a very simple way. For this template, I'm using a Google Sheet in which I have 5 columns. In the first column, I have the domains, the sites for which I want to create a Google Search Console report. So I enter either the domain, if I have the associated domain, or the full URL of the site, depending on the property I've entered in Search Console. Next, I'll retrieve clicks, impressions, CTR, and position. So, of course, you can retrieve a lot more data from Search Console because the principle you're about to see allows you to extract any data. The principle applies to all forms of data. But here, for the demo, I'm concentrating on essential data. And I specify with Automa that I want to retrieve all this data for the previous month. So I'll set these up directly in Automa, in fact, in global data. These are variables, in fact, accessible throughout the Automa template, which allow you to use dynamic values. There are other ways of doing this, but it's not the only one. I use this one. I define the start date. Start is the 1st of June of the year of the end date, the youngest of the year of the end date. So, demonstration. And there you have it. All the data has been transferred to my Google Sheet. So in just a few seconds, I've automated the creation of Google Search Console reports with Automa. How does it work? Here's how it works. First of all, I'm going to read my Google Sheet. So I've entered the ID in global data. I told you about it before, so I entered it here. I'm going to read the report tab. So the report tab and retrieve column A. That's all I need for reading. From here, I create a loop that will allow me to read every row of my Google Sheet. So I call it websites loop. And I base it on the Google Sheet configuration I created earlier, which matches with this reference websites. This way the loop matches the correct Google Sheet configuration. In case you have several Google Sheet blocks before with different configurations, this is how you'll be able to target the right Google Sheet. So first of all, I check whether we're in the context of a domain or a complete URL, because the way to call the right URL on Google Search Console is not the same. So I check, well, domain, it's not complicated. Is the value I've entered here, does it contain HTTP or not? So to dynamically retrieve the value of this column, I use Automa's mustache syntax, i.e. a system of double braces, in which I first enter the source of the data, which can be a variable, global data. It can be an array, it can be different things. In this case, we're in a loop. So the source of the data is loop data. Which one? Websites loop. This is the ID I gave to the loop just before. And since we're in a Google Sheet, afterwards I mention the title of the column I want to retrieve, which is called websites. This means that we're in the first execution of the loop, in the first iteration. So here we are. It reads this. So behind, do we have HTTP or not? In the value. This will then determine what I add to the URL when I call Search Console. So if I don't have HTTP, so we're in domain, I'll add this in the URL that will be called on Search Console. And if not, I'll settle for this. Right, so here I'm going to call my Search Console by building the right complete URL, i.e. with the parameters that I've just determined or not, depending on whether it's a domain or a URL. The domain or URL, the start date, the end date. And what allows me to get like this, the right dates and the right site. From there, I created a table in Automa, which reproduces exactly what we have in the Google Sheet, since in the end, it's the table that's going to be copied and pasted into the Google Sheet. This is how the data will be transferred into the Google Sheet. So, in fact, I use the same structure. And now everything, first of all, I enter the site in question. So I take this data. Next, I retrieve the various values. I retrieve them using an attribute value block. Since the values are actually found when you pass the HTML code, or with Automa's element selector, or with Google Chrome's inspector. Well, you can determine this. There, you see? Let's make it 3. This is an attribute whose title has the required value. So it's this way. So I'm not going to go into the details, but this is how you can target the right element, very easily the right element, from which to extract the information. So basically, here for clicks, it corresponds to a precise, easy to find value. I'll assign this value to the table, so I'll start feeding the other columns of the table, the clicks column. Same principle with impressions, same principle with CTR, same principle with position. And now I've reached the end of my loop. And so I go back to the beginning of my loop, which means I move on to the next line, and so on. And once I've processed all the lines, I then update my Google Sheet with the values obtained in the table, because if you look at the logs, what you see in the Google Sheet, as I was saying, is exactly the Automa table. So what did Automa actually do? It did copy, paste, no more, no less. So here, we go to the report tab and we update columns. Update columns A to E. So all that, here we go. We copy and paste from the table, and that's it. So you see, you can save a hell of a lot valuable to automate the creation of Google Search Console reports. And once again, you can get more information from other pages. If you want to complete your report, you can imagine anything and everything. The principle is the same blocks, the same logic. So you see, to extract different information, one more piece of information, you add one more block. In a way, that's it. So in a very simple, very fast way with Automa, you can automate the creation of Google Search Console reports for your own sites or those of your customers. You'll find this template in my Automa training course, so you can analyze and test it for yourself. Don't quite understand? Don't worry, that's normal. This wasn't a training video, but a demonstration. Because the aim of my training course is to teach you step by step, to gradually teach you how to master Automa so that you'll be comfortable using on all templates. Did you like this video? Please feel free to like, comment, and share it. That's what keeps me going. And if you have any ideas for templates for future videos, let me know in the comments. And of course, if you don't want to miss any future videos, subscribe to my channel.